Hi, it's Rory from counsellingtutor.co.uk, and we're here again at Manchester Institute for Psychotherapy in Chorlton in Manchester with my good friend Bob Cooke.
Hello.
Hello, good to see you again, Bob.
Yeah, good to see you. It's a few weeks now since we last did a video for the TA Therapy YouTube channel, so it's good to be back.
Yes, and today we're talking about sex and psychotherapy, so
yes.
Don't turn off.
Don't run away.
Don't run away. We've used the sex word. I know from my experience of tutoring learners, practice level, that one of the big fears that comes up, Bob, is if one of my learners works with a client and they say, "Oh, my heart's fluttering," or "My blood pressure's going up," and I'm having feelings. And it's quite interesting that last year that happened. Well, not last year, but a couple of years ago, that happened with one of my learners, and that person said to me, "What do you think I should do about it?" And I said, "Well, I think you certainly need to take it to your supervisor." And it was quite interesting the way that person worked through it. What's your view on sex and psychotherapy?
Well, it's a really interesting subject area. First of all, I think what happens is therapists, like you've just said, who have sexual feelings for their clients, get so frightened of their own feelings and how to deal with it in a therapeutic encounter. It often leads to what I call defensive psychotherapy. Mm-hmm. In other words, they shut down part of themselves, are so frightened of even displaying any types of affection that could be seen as sexual orientation, that I think it constrains the therapy. They then go to supervision, hopefully, and hopefully that supervisor encourages them to think about where they go next in terms of either sharing some of what they're feeling or helping themselves be more whole in the relationship.
And I think you've hit on a key point here, Bob. One of the things this person said to me, my learner said to me, was, "Well, I'm trying to shut that part of myself down."
Yeah.
And of course, if you do that, what happens is you're shutting part of yourself off from the relationship.
Yeah. And of course, what we've seen in the 21st century, especially in the last decade, is many, many books and research which shows that the relationship is key to cure. The examination of what happens in the co-created relationship between the therapist and the client is essential for cure and well-being in the service of the client. Now, if we're going to take that reference, then if we're going to take the idea of a co-created relationship between two people being important in the service of the client, and then in the same frame we're talking about shutting down part of our sense of self because of our sexual vibrant self, how does that sit with the idea of being relational in the psychotherapy room? So we're back to the same questions again. Do we share what's happening to ourselves in the relationship, or do we cut ourselves off? If we decide to share what's happening, so there's more of a connectedness, then we have to think about how we do it, when we do it, why we're doing it, and the consequences with the client in terms of perceived shame or not, the developmental age of the client, whether they're going to be overwhelmed and cut off themselves. So we have many things to think about. On top of that, we need to think of erotic transference, projective identification, what could be happening at uncommunication level in terms of, for example, the client might unconsciously be using the sexual language, if you like, might be coming from them, as a way of talking to me.
Yes.
Because that's their way of being able to attempt to communicate.
Yes.
You know, you just take the 4-year-old, 5-year-old little girl or daughter with their dad, they're often very, if we can use the term, seductive. I'm talking about unconsciously here.
Yes.
I'm talking about consciously.
Yes.
As a way of tuning to their father.
Yes.
So there's many mediums of looking at this, but I believe to cut off, to disown part of ourselves as a therapist in the relationship will lead to a defensive psychotherapy.
Yes. Where we're somehow disconnected, cut off, part of ourselves isn't available to our clients. And as you say, the research comes back time and time again to the quality of the relationship being an arbiter of the outcome for positive results or positive end to psychotherapy. Now also, it's quite interesting, you've talked about a number of areas there to think about. So what I'm getting from this is there's almost like a checklist or a stratagem that's
Correct.
used.
Yes.
Yeah. So where's the starting point? If you've got a client who you are feeling, and this may be a subjective response, mightn't it? It might not be the actuality.
No, that's the important.
Yes. So let's start from there. You're, as a therapist, you're getting those feelings.
Getting sexual feelings.
Getting sexual feelings. Where is the starting point for the therapist's exploration of that?
Okay, this is what I think the starting point is. The therapist needs to think, whose sexual feelings are they? Are they my own? And are they the client's? In other words, are they my own, or are they my clients who's been projected into me?
Yes.
And why that's important to start off there is because you can then start differentiating out who's who around here. Yeah? Second question to help you do that is to say to yourself, who is she for me in terms of my history?
Yes.
And who am I for her in terms of her history?
So we're right into the transferential area now, aren't we? We're right into that.
Right in there.
Right in there, aren't we? Right into the material.
The transference matrix. There's some things written about it, often called erotic transference.
Yes.
And then there's, well, I say a lot, perhaps there isn't that much written about it, but it's usually termed under the term erotic transference. I know you were talking about this earlier on. So I have some more thoughts, by the way, but what do you think of this in terms of erotic? Do you think of this in terms of erotic transference?
Well, yes, I do. I think that, you know, and it's interesting you said she, it could be he.
Yeah.
You know, it could be same-sex transference.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's the whole gamut, isn't it, of the human condition, whatever sexuality. It may even be that you have someone who is heterosexual who is getting sexual feelings
Correct.
about someone of the same sex. And you're right, it is about an exploration. And I guess what I'd say is, even if you're a person-centred therapist, you know, you cannot escape your history.
Correct, that's the bit.
That's the key thing. So when, you know, if I was working in supervision, I would expect my supervisor to be looking at my historic timeline and asking me, who does this client remind you of? And it may be we get into that situation where, to make things really complicated, you have, as a male therapist, I have a male client, I'm getting erotic feelings, and it may be that if I go down my timeline, they are presenting some of the things that somebody, male or female from my past,
yes, that's right,
may have reminded me of.
correct.
So I think the first position is, as you say, whose problem is it? Is it my problem, or is it my understanding, or is it something that's projected?
Yeah.
If it's projected, we're into the realms of eroticized transference,
Correct.
which is where the client is actively trying to build a different form of relationship.
Yeah, to get a different outcome.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So because they want to, the client is attempting to tell you something. That's the important thing. The client is trying to tell you something through an unconscious communication. Now, if we're looking at connections, then the therapist, if they can see it that way, this is about a client who really desperately, quite often, is attempting to connect with you, and it may be the only medium they know.
Yes.
Now,
So,
if the therapist then shuts off, often, out of fear of maybe their own history, but in terms of adult psychotherapy, maybe fear of litigation,
absolutely.
the catastrophic expectations that may suddenly start arriving in their heads, and then they shut off, and then they go towards defensive psychotherapy. The client, often then, there's a reenactment of history where they feel abandoned, shut down,
Yes.
isolated, often go into a regress state, say something like, there's something wrong with me, and we get a complete reenactment of their early historical situation. And therapy will not work there.
No. Because in the past.
We go nowhere.
Yes. Yes. I also think that, in my experience, certainly clients who've been sexualized, and by that term what I mean to say is that as human beings we all find our sexual pleasuring, and usually we that's an exploration of our that we do on our own terms. But clients who've had historic abuse or have been sexualized sometimes develop a communication language of sex.
Yes, they do, and they may well confuse affection and sex.
Yes.
So they don't put them together.
Yes.
And that's a really, really important thing for a therapist to think about in terms of helping, if you like, deconfuse the client about what is normal, what isn't normal,
Yes.
rather than sort of what's wrong and what's right.
Yes.
You're 100% correct. In that sexualization, they then are often so confused that love and sex
Yes.
become so entangled. Their everyday functioning becomes blurred. And they don't know it. Or put another way, it's outside their awareness.
Yes. Yes. So, at this point, we've kind of gone down an interesting path. We've talked about whose issue is it? Is it the therapist's issue? Is it the client's issue? We've talked about being honest to ourselves, and I think this is the key thing. It's not about hiding it or dismissing it. And I think sometimes there can be, for therapists, a sense of shame around, almost like they're not being honourable or professional, or doing the right thing, and then that mindset moves into a fear idea, a shame position, and they either don't bring it to supervision or they shut it off completely. Therefore, they never really work out what it's about. More to the point, they never actually are able to be whole within the relationship.
Yes, yeah. So I'm here at 10 a.m. in the morning, this is a true story, waiting for my training group. A call arrives from one of my supervisees who says, I've got to tell you something. I said, what? I think I might be ethically charged. I said, what about? Oh, that I acted out sexually inappropriately with my client.
Wow. 10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So I said, come in and see me straight away, and we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
Why I'm telling you this is because this person had sexual feelings towards their clients, and this was a case, instead of going to their supervisor, because I didn't know anything about I didn't know anything about any of this.
Yes.
And this is what really needs not to happen.
Yes.
They acted out inappropriately with their client.
Yes.
Yeah. So that is the really dramatic, negative extreme of this, which we don't want to happen.
Yes. And a classic of what happens when someone doesn't take it on themselves, and it's the therapist's responsibility, isn't it, to access supervision, to bring all the material to their supervisor. We cannot work with what we do not know.
No.
And that's clearly the case in point, isn't it? So, and if that happens, if it isn't explored, then the outcome that Bob's discussed, where then it progresses across the boundary.
Yeah, it progresses across the boundary. And we mustn't forget how powerful erotic transference can be. Because often it's what we just talked about earlier on, it's the little girl who wants so desperately to have a different outcome, to have a healthy connection, not a distorted, reenacted process. So there's such a powerful, almost hypnotic message, if you like, or unconscious communication going towards the client. They then pick that out, and it's the duty of the therapist to go to the supervisor, to talk about this, go to therapy if they need to, not to end up in a situation like I was as the supervisor, and then the therapist told me, oh well, I acted out unprofessionally in a way, and then they end up goodness knows where, and of course for the client there's the worst possible outcome. Absolutely.
So what message, I know there'll be a lot of people watching this who may be thinking, that's happened to me. They may even be saying, I'm so glad that Rory and Bob are talking about it, because it's very hard.
It's normal in some ways to have sexual feelings, but whose is it?
Yes.
Where's it come from?
Yes.
What's it about? And if it is an adult attraction, I suggest you refer the client to someone else.
Right. So if it is an adult attraction where you work through it in supervision, but it's still there.
Yeah, if it's still there, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. My apologies. You can take it to the supervisor.
Yes.
And if you can work through it, great.
Yes.
If you can talk about your supervisor, talk it with your supervisor and work through it and know what you're doing and ground yourself and see it in the context of where you're going clinically.
Yes.
Then there's a lot of productivity with it.
Yes.
That's the bit.
Yes. But ultimately, if you can't get over that, if you can't move past it, the most ethical thing to do would refer on. Yes. And I guess as we bring this to an end, it's been really, really interesting. I always say to my learners and to people I supervise, only human. You're only human. And it's at that point where human feelings and the human condition takes you in therapy, which will help your client. But if we're the whole, and I always talk about Terence, the Greek playwright, Bob, who talks about, I am human, nothing human is alien to me. And I think that's a wonderful clarion call for therapists.
Yeah.
The idea that we are open to the whole of the human condition. If you're having attraction or your client's attracted, there is no shame in taking that to supervise. Your supervisor should be happy to work with that, should help you look at it. It's not a weakness or a failing or some kind of immoral character. It's a human feeling that's come up.
Yeah, and it isn't shameful, and it's not a failure if the client in front of you has sexual feelings.
Yes.
The reverse. It often takes such courage for them to say, I'm having sexual feelings here towards you. Now that needs to be explored, talked about.
Yes.
Not, keep this out of the room then.
Yes. Oh no, because you're dismissing. You're dismissing the client, aren't you?
But often the therapist goes into a defensive reaction.
Yes.
About the process. Oh, better not talk about this then. Let's just talk about something else.
Yes.
Or they take them off on intellectual routes.
Yes.
Away from validating the process and talking about the white elephant, which they might see is in the room, but actually is so important in terms of two vibrant human beings in the moment to bring into the therapeutic encounter.
Absolutely.
That way, a healthy process is validated.
Yes, yes. Not avoiding it, not kind of intellectualising it,
No.
which is a defensive mechanism, isn't it?
Yeah, then go to therapy. Then go to supervisor
Yes.
and talk about it.
Yes. And as I bring this to an end, I always say to my learners, well, a wonderful quote by Maya Angelou, who's a wonderful writer. She's not a therapist as such, she's a poet and a playwright. Look her up, Maya Angelou. And she famously says, without courage, we cannot practice any other virtue consistently.
You have such wonderful quotes. I want to give a Bob Cooke quote.
Go on, give a Bob Cooke quote. Just to finish off, do a Bob Cooke
Which is
quote.
therapy is a process, not an event.
Yeah.
And we need to see this whole process that we're talking about as a process, past, present, and in fact future. And we need to be human with ourselves.
Yes.
In this process. So I love your quotes.
Thank you,
always like them, and I think it's a good way to perhaps end this video.
And on that existential Bob Cooke note, as always, thank you for watching.
Yeah, and thank you very much. Bye bye.